Welcome to another episode of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. I'm Derek Tate alongside Jay Pfeiffer. Had another very, I'd say, active week in Week 14 of NFL action. And of course, we got Week 15. Look, heading down the home stretch, Jay.
Yes, sir.
But first things first, how are things going over there in the Chi-Town?
Everything's good, man. You know, the Bears here have won a few games in a row, and after 12 weeks, somehow the offense has been found, and it's keeping the slim playoff hopes alive here in Chicago. But football-wise, everything is good, man. And, of course, you know, we're still got a whole lot of stuff other going on in the NFL, so let's get into it.
Yeah, so, I mean, speaking of the Chicago Bears, since we'll go ahead and start with Chicago because that's actually where we began Week 14 was with the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys. And you can say what you will about the Dallas Cowboys because they're a team that still has not beaten a team with a winning record all season long. But the Bears started to play some football and start to look like the team that everybody kind of thought that they were. Not to quote Danny Green, but they starting to look like the team everybody thought that they could be over the last month or so.
Yeah.
And in particular, Mitchell Trubisky. I've slammed him on countless occasions. I know you've heard plenty of Mitchell Trubisky hate up there in Chicago.
Well deserved, though, in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. I'm not gonna crown him or anything like that. I'm not going to go ahead and I'm sticking with the Denny Green quote, but I don't want to go ahead and stick with anything that I'm saying that his criticism has been justified. I got to go ahead and give the credit where credit is due. He played his best game of the season against the Dallas Cowboys. What was it? 4 total touchdowns, 3 through the air, 1 on the ground, and he looked the most decisive that he's been all season long. So if you can kind of give me some of your takeaways from that Chicago Bears game, and they're one game now behind the Minnesota Vikings? They're not done yet.
No, they're definitely not done yet, Derek. And again, the playoff hopes are slim here. But you know what? Who would have said even slim playoff hopes just, a month ago? Like you said, the Bears have been playing some pretty good football. Granted, some people will look at the schedule and some of those opponents and say, well, you haven't really beaten anybody super good yet either. Although they do have a win against the Vikings earlier on in the season, but that again, that was earlier on in the season. Right. And after 11, 12 weeks here, it seems as though the Bears offense has found itself. Now, is it a question of being too little, too late? We have to wait and see. Like you said, Tater, they're now 1 game behind the Vikings in the division. Who, even though they won last week, they're definitely keeping pace. The Bears are with them right there in the division, and still got a couple of weeks to go left, 3-4 weeks to go, and for the past month it's been okay. But I think the takeaway from the game for me was that I think maybe, and I don't know how much stock you put into this. I don't know how even true it is, but Trubisky looked healthy, at least to me, and lively, and actually engaged in the game for probably the first time all season. I don't know if he was, maybe there were some nagging things going on with his legs or anything like that, but it was obvious that he just wasn't running the ball like he was last year, which was a big key to his success, right? Was being able with that run, that read option to get outside of the hash marks and make a couple of guys miss, which he did on a couple of occasions in that Dallas game. Of course, the one on a touchdown. I mean, you can probably say that was pretty poor tackling, but again, it was Trubisky doing Trubisky-like things. These were the things that made him so successful last year, on the way to a Pro Bowl nod. And he's now starting to do those things more and more. Also, I thought, and I'm not going back and forth with this, and you can kind of give me your thoughts really quick on this too, Tater. I thought the playbook was diversified a little bit, if that makes any sense. I saw some of the same plays, but I also saw some creativity from Matt Nagy in the offensive game that, again, for a large part in the middle of the season, we just hadn't saw. And on a lot of those plays, what you saw was Trubisky being decisive and getting the ball out of his hands too, which was something that he struggled with earlier on in the season. So it's no coincidence, right? When your quarterback plays great, your team ends up playing great. I mean, I know it's a cliche that we can talk about and beat to death, but it's no coincidence that since Trubisky's been playing well, the team has been winning.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and echo everything that you just said in regards to Matt Nagy calling himself a pretty good football game. And I will say that Trubisky does look healthier. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with when you have a shoulder injury at the quarterback spot. I mean, you're already supposed to not be taking hits as it is at the NFL level when you're trying to tuck it down and run as a signal caller. I mean, Lamar Jackson's kind of Lamar Jackson, but I mean, Trubisky, they kind of teach you to get down, avoid hits. And certainly if you have a shoulder issue in the NFL, you're certainly not going to be quite as bullish to be able to pull the ball down and be willing to take hits, which you already mentioned. That was a part of what made Trubisky look so good last season was the fact that he was so dynamic as far as being able to be a dual threat quarterback. And we certainly saw glimpses of that. And yeah, that you can say what you want about the Dallas Cowboys defense. They look like hell, but Trubisky made the plays.
Right.
So we'll see if the Chicago Bears can continue to build offensively, because they should be getting Akeem Hicks back. And that defense goes from a very, very good defensive unit to an elite unit with him in the middle, demanding as much attention as he does on the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah, that was the other point about it too, and this is going in the next week, which we will talk about obviously later on in the broadcast here. But getting Akeem's back, I can't stress how much of a value that guy was when he went down. Of course, it's unfortunate that you get a guy in and you lose a guy in Roquan Smith, who was having a pretty decent season. He's going to be lost for the season with a pectoral tear, so very unfortunate there. But like you said, Tater, to get that key cog in on that defensive line, Akeem Hicks, he is a game wrecker, man. And if he's healthy, if he's able to do his thing, this should be a pretty interesting matchup going into Green Bay next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about the upcoming matchups a little bit later here on the Go Route, brought to you by the Original Hooters. So some other takeaways. Look, we had ourselves a shootout in the Big Easy, and I'm not sure what you want to take away from this game. I'm actually interested to hear what you say. Is the San Francisco 49ers beat the Saints in the Superdome with a last-second field goal, and there were just points aplenty, 48-46. 49ers come out on top and have now retaken a slight advantage over the Seattle Seahawks and the aforementioned Saints for the number 1 seed in the NFC. So what are some of your takeaways from this game that I think was an instant classic?
Yeah, I mean, game of the year, right? Game of the year so far in the NFL this season. Unfortunately, I was doing a broadcast at UIC. I wasn't able to watch a whole lot of the Sunday action, but obviously, I get the alerts on the scores and everything, Tater. And all I'm seeing is San Francisco, New Orleans, San Francisco. I mean, it was a back and forth shootout. I want to thank you a lot for forcing me to not start Drew Brees. By the way, I can't let you get away with that. Even here on the route, I'm going to give you a little bit of shit for that.
I don't blame you for picking me for that, man. I mean, fantasy football, guys, it's tough, man. Here on
it was a tough one. It was a tough one. But listen, back to the game. It was again instant classic, like you said, game of the year, and in a lot of ways, it was a game that the Niners sort of had to win, right? I mean, it wasn't going to ruin their season if they lost the game by any means necessary. But going on the road to Baltimore the week before, I mean, playing them to a game-winning field goal as time runs out to the Baltimore Ravens, and then having to go on the road again to New Orleans, which, as we both know, is one of the toughest places to play in the entire league, and to come out there and to just hang with the Saints, it was something, because they could have been blown out really easily in this game. I think New Orleans went up sort of big early. I'm kind of trying to recall it here. Again, I wasn't able to see the game, but if I remember sort of the scoring, how it went, I think New Orleans maybe went up a couple of touchdowns, I think, early in that game. San Francisco had to fight back for it. They were fortunate that the Saints had a couple of injuries during that game to some key players. The result may have been different. You never know. The hindsight is always 20/20 when we talk about that type of stuff. But that game-winning drive, right? I mean, that pass to Kittle, probably the best tight end in the league as of right now. Rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, as Chris Berman would like to say, to get them on the other side of the 50 and in the field goal range. I mean, what else can you say? They battled a team as well as you could, and they were able to come out on top. And like you said, it was an instant classic.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the play calling on both sides. I mean, we're not shocked that, Sean Payton and Kyle Shanahan were able to dial up some good plays, but I mean, to see them both just go in tit for tat, counter punching one another, I mean, we saw even some trick plays. I mean, the 49ers had Emmanuel Sanders just heave one off his back foot to Raheem Mostert. I mean, and Mostert, by the way, hell of a game. I mean, this guy, Matt Breida was healthy, and Kevin Coleman was healthy, and yet it was Raheem Mostert who led the team in carries and total touches out of the backfield and 2 total touchdowns. So, you know, when you think of garbage, you don't think of Raheem. No, I mean, when it came, and it was the Saints that had a 20-7 and a 27-14 lead, respectively, in the first half before the 49ers just kept coming. But yeah, man, it was an instant classic. And what it tells me is that I think that these are the 2 best teams in the NFC. No disrespect to Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, they were able to knock off the 49ers, and the Niners had a chance to win that Monday Night Football game. I think it was like about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Niners have really shown themselves, even though they've lost a couple games. I mean, their 2 losses on the year. Who has a better 2-loss resume than the San Francisco 49ers? Agreed. I mean, the Ravens and the Seahawks, respectively. The Niners, I think, are the best team in the NFC. I don't know if they're going to be able to hold off the Seahawks, but certainly the win against the Saints is enormous as far as the hierarchy of being able to take that number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, for sure, because you don't want to have to possibly go into New Orleans again. Right? I mean, down the road. I mean, listen. I mean, that's just what it is. So for these 2 teams, this was a really important game, and now it looks like possibly, again, there's a ton of football left to be played, but it looks like possibly the NFC could go through San Francisco.
So let's go ahead and shift gears to the AFC, because we had 2 marquee matchups in the AFC that weren't even primetime games, mind you. There was a lot of good football last week. Baltimore Ravens on the road, and man, do they just continue to find ways to win football games as they beat the Buffalo Bills in their house 24-17. Lamar Jackson, 3 touchdowns through the air. It was kind of rough conditions, only threw for 145 yards through the air. And it's crazy. You know, Jackson threw 3 touchdown passes, and yet I felt like the Buffalo Bills did a good job on him. Because Jackson only had 40 yards on the ground, so less than 200 total yards from a guy that I think is still running away with the MVP race for the 2019 season. But what are some of your thoughts from the Ravens winning yet again against another playoff caliber football team?
Yeah, and well, I would say that they did do a good job, and I'm talking about Buffalo defensively on Lamar Jackson. Obviously, the 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's a great argument. But if we're talking about total yardage, they certainly didn't let him run all over the field, which is what he's been able to do for most of the season. The game was about how I thought it was. I had the result flipped. I think we talked about it last week a little bit. I thought Buffalo would win this game. I thought Baltimore was trending downward just a little bit. But like you said, finding ways to win the game, man. And this one was a little bit more about the defense than the offense. It didn't have a breakout type of day. And like you said, it was a little bit rough conditions, a little sloppy there, especially early in the game. But I mean, Buffalo is a tough place to play too, especially when the team is actually good. For Baltimore to go in there and get a W, again, it shows that they're clearly the class of the AFC at this point to me, and it's also possibly a rematch. We'll see. I think what it also showed was Buffalo was up. They're up to the challenges, right? I mean, they may not necessarily be able to overcome them yet. But most of the losses that they have, they're within 1 score, and they're close games, and they're tightly contested, and they're defensive slow games. It's old school football is what the Buffalo Bills are relying on right now. So if they can find a few more breakaway plays within their offense, they may be able to turn it on in these last few weeks and maybe upset a team or 2 in the playoffs. But I think, again, for me, it showed that Buffalo is up to any team that's willing to play.
Well, they got to get more from Josh Allen. They do. Yeah. He's been playing better as of recently. So I'm not throwing stones at him or anything like that. I'm just simply stating that if this team is to take that next step, then Josh Allen is the person that's got to get him over the hump, because Devin Singletary played a very good football game. He was the leading rusher in this game with 89 yards on 17 carries, averaging 5 yards a clip against a pretty damn good defensive unit in the Baltimore Ravens. So Devin Singletary is doing his part. Right. And you have a dynamic running back behind a very improved offensive line that are just maulers as far as run blocking goes. But I mean, so the Ravens did what I expected the Ravens to do. It's Josh Allen that we just continue to not know what Josh Allen is going to show up.
Yep.
But I agree with you in the fact that we've seen them beat some good football teams, and then we've also seen them play competitive football and be right within striking distance late in the fourth quarter against not only the Baltimore Ravens, but the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they have hung in there with the class of the AFC so far this season. So the Bills can still – I think that the Bills are probably going to win a playoff game.
Yeah, it depends on the matchup. I kind of do too. Again, a lot of football to be played, Tater. But yeah, depending on who they get, it'll probably. I'm sure they'll probably slot in the 5th seed. But depending on who that 4th seed is, I think you might be looking for an upset there.
I think they're a bad matchup for the Houston Texans.
Oh yeah, let's get to them.
Yeah. So speaking of Houston Texans, yeah, that's a perfect segue because they got shellacked by the Drew Lock led.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, if you don't know who Drew Lock is, why the hell are you listening to this show? And two, he's a rookie quarterback that threw for 309 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
And this game was not competitive from the jump. I mean, the score is very deceiving because Deshaun Watson had 3 touchdowns, total touchdowns in the second half, 2 rushing. But what are we to make of this Texans team? And we just saw them beat the New England Patriots on primetime football. We've seen them show up in big moments in big games this year, and then we've seen them lay a couple eggs. Who are they? What are they? Like, can you trust them in the postseason?
Yeah, that's why, and again, this is a sort of a situation where hindsight's 2020, but that's why I specifically did not overreact to the Texans beating the Patriots a couple of weeks ago, because this team is just a little bit up and down. And you talk about a bad loss, Tater. This is among the playoff, teams here. It's probably one of the baddest, if not the worst loss that I've ever thought of. The Broncos were up 38-3 at one point. This was not a contest. Again, like you said, the score is not indicative of just how bad the Houston Texans played. And in particular, Deshaun Watson. I mean, we were talking about this guy being a fringe MVP candidate. Certainly not after their performance like that. Turning the ball over, which he's done the past couple of weeks. It's a little bit alarming. A couple of picks. I think a fumble loss. And I think that was recovered for a touchdown. Actually, it was recovered for a touchdown. And it's mind-boggling because again, we don't want to throw too much shade at the Denver Broncos, right? I mean, but the Denver Broncos are not a really good team. And of course, Drew Lock is making, I believe, his second start of his career. And as a defense, you allow him to throw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's kind of inexcusable. And again, they're probably going to still end up winning the division, but it's not so simple now. Not with the Titans playing the way that they're playing. So
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those losses where you shake your head. There's not much you can say about it. It's just bad. It's really bad.
Yeah. You pretty much laid it out there. I mean, the Texans are a team that offensive. I mean, but the thing is, do you have any faith in their defense in the postseason? I don't. I mean, they just got lit up by Drew Lock. I'm not saying that they're not capable of playing good football because they certainly looked good against the New England Patriots, but the Patriots offense just continues to look like it's non-existent and just cannot seem to find an identity in 2019. So I'm not going to look at their Texans defensive performance again. And then they lost J.J. Watt, which was really they traded away Jadeveon Clowney before they head into the year. So who's their marquee guy? Who's their playmaker? Who's their leader? I mean, Whitney Merciless maybe, but point being, the Texans outside of if you take Deshaun Watson off this football team, I think that they're a 4 or 5 win football team.
I agree with that.
So the Texans, they're going to go as far as Deshaun Watson can take them. Which can Deshaun Watson get him a win in the wild card round? Yeah, he can. And we remember what he did at the University of Clemson, but it's the NFL, man. And we've seen the Texans get bottled up because they still have protection issues and they still defensively are inconsistent. So I think there's more questions than answers for the Texans heading down the final 3 games of the NFL season. But speaking of questions, I was harping on it last week. I kept this team out of my top 5 power rankings, which we will have coming at you here on the Go Route here in a little bit, brought to you by the Original Hooters. The New England Patriots,
Yep.
the Kansas City Chiefs, a rematch of the AFC Championship game from last year. We remember that even though Patrick Mahomes was the new kid on the block last year, NFL MVP, the New England Patriots and Tom Brady had their number, beat him in the regular season, beat him at Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game. Not this time around. And I'm not saying it was necessarily a passing of the torch type of game, but the Kansas City Chiefs went into Foxborough and came away with a W, and Patriots have lost back-to-back games. And I got to tell you, Tom Brady still doesn't look like Tom Brady to me. I know that they have some protection issues, Jay, but Tom Brady looks cooked again. I'm going to keep banging on this drum. He's the best quarterback of all time, but he does not look like the same damn guy. So give me your thoughts and takeaways from the Chiefs and Patriots.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I've been telling you, you're not necessarily going to get an argument about me from Tom Brady. I mean, the guy's 41 years old. Let's let's put it in a little bit of perspective. I mean, if you're telling me that, should he hang him up? I'm not going to say that yet, but I mean, they clearly still have offensive issues. They don't have a go-to guy in the passing game. As you saw, once again, let's give the Chiefs defense a lot of credit. But when you bracket Julian Edelman, it is really tough for this New England offense to push the ball down the field. This is nothing new at this point. They've had these issues for a while now. Now, having said all of that, I'm still not going to overreact to this loss because the Patriots had 2 touchdowns that weren't called or overturned or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So if I mean, again, we can, you can look at that and say what if, but if those touchdowns were called as touchdowns, which they should have been, the Patriots would have won this game. So I'm not necessarily going to overreact to this loss. Do they have offensive issues? Of course they do. Have they lost a game in Foxborough in December for the first time since I can't even remember, actually? Yes, they have. It is very alarming if you're a Patriots fan. But there's still about 3 weeks left in this season, Tater, for the Patriots to get it right. Now, they've got issues because, listen, I mean, I didn't necessarily want to get into this, but more of this videotaping sideline crap that they're in right now, not a good look optically. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I thought they would have learned their lesson the first time they were caught red-handed doing this sort of thing, but apparently they haven't. I can't speculate on what's going to happen in the future on this, but I mean, as a whole, it doesn't look good for the Patriots right now. It doesn't.
Come on, you feel as if you have to send your film crew to go videotape the sidelines of a 1-win Cincinnati Bengals football team.
Makes no sense.
I mean, come on. I mean, like, I get it. You're trying to gain a competitive advantage. If everybody's trying to do it in the NFL, I get it. Everybody's trying to. It's kind of like trying to steal signs in baseball. Everybody, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Whatever. But I mean, Spygate was in 2007. This team, Bill Belichick got fined $500,000, which is, again, peanuts to a guy like him. But they also got docked a first-round pick. Then you got Deflategate, which was back in, 2015?
Yep.
Then they got docked another first-round pick.
Yep.
And Tom Brady got suspended for 4 games. Like, I can't – I'm definitely not one of those guys that – and I don't want to go too far down this road and saying, oh, well, the whole Patriots dynasty should be held with an asterisk because of the fact that they're trying to cheat/gain a competitive advantage. That's professional sports. Everybody's trying to gain some sort of professional advantage. And you still got to go and perform out on the football field, which Tom Brady has done throughout his entire 20-year NFL career, maybe save this season. But the point is, I'm not shocked to hear that they're doing stuff like this, but, it's disappointing because I continue to want to be able to just give credit where credit is due. But when you hear these things like every 5 years or so, it starts to be like, dude, what the hell? Like, really? You're caught cheating again?
Yeah.
I mean, it does make me raise an eyebrow at some of their dynasty's accomplishments over the last 2 decades.
Of course it does. It has to. I mean, if you're an objective NFL fan like we both are, I mean, you have to. just raise an eyebrow, if not both eyebrows. And it just reminds me of that saying in The Godfather, these things got to happen every 5 years or so,
Right.
10 years to get rid of the bad blood. It's ridiculous, but yeah, certainly disappointing. And like you said, I mean, for the Bengals, I mean, come on, what are we really doing here, guys?
Yeah, I don't get it, but that's another scenario that we'll keep you posted here on the Go Route brought to you by the original Hooters. One more game I want to talk about before we get into, because we're really the MVP watch. It's about Lamar Jackson at this point, so we're gonna probably just kind of gloss over that, even though Lamar's still balling out. We do have our game balls to give out, but speaking of game balls, I almost want to give one to Sean McVay because the Los Angeles Rams, I personally, if you were to ask me 2 or 3 weeks ago, I thought that they were cooked. I thought that this team, I mean, in how the NFC was shaking out, I did not think that they really had a chance to make a late season push based on how the offense was looking, Todd Gurley's lack of involvement or lack of production. Now, granted, Gurley still only averaged 3.5 yards per carry, but we still saw glimpses of Todd Gurley, and we've seen the heaviest dose of Todd Gurley this season that we've seen in 2019, 23 carries, 79 yards, and a touchdown. And they really ran the offense through him. And again, you saw that play action that Sean McVay is so well known for. And back-to-back solid games, this one not quite as good against a better secondary in Seattle, but still 293 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air for Jared Goff. But the defense, though, really put it on Russell Wilson. And we haven't seen that very often in 2019, where the Seattle Seahawks offense was kept out of the end zone through the air.
Yeah. It was certainly, I think, refreshing, I guess is the word I'm looking for, to see, Sean McVay sort of get it in a sense, right? I mean, I think the reason why they were struggling so early in the season was because they weren't working the ball through Todd Gurley. Now you can attribute that to, him not quite being 100%, or maybe them, just basically wanting to rest him. But they're starting to really give, the horse its due, right? I mean, because that's what you're supposed to do when you've got a guy like Todd Gurley. You've got to work your offense through him. And that's what made the Rams offense so successful, was Todd Gurley and working off of Todd Gurley with the play action pass in the passing game. So it looks like they're starting to look more like that, the team that, people thought they would. We were talking about the Bears earlier. They're starting to look like the team that we thought they would earlier in the season. Is it a little too late for them, though? I don't think so. I think they're hot at the right time. I think things may shake out their way for them to get in. And they're certainly a dangerous team right now. That's for sure. I saw this game coming in a lot of ways. The Seahawks were just playing so well, and the Rams were just, they're starting to get hot. It was in LA on the road for the Seahawks. I just kind of saw that result coming a little bit, but again, a little concerning to see them shut out of the end zone through the air. But I attributed that to a Rams defense, like you said, that was sort of a no-show for a lot of part of this season as well, and they're starting to play some good football. Yeah,
so it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this, because I think the Seahawks and the 49ers, they're both going to make the playoffs. Yep. It's really the position that is up for grabs in the NFC is that second wild card spot between the Minnesota Vikings, the Los Angeles Rams, and of course the outside shot for the Chicago Bears. I think that's really where we're going to see that race come down to as we head down the final 3 games of the NFL season. So, but as we move into game balls, and I thought that there were some great performances. I'm going to kick it off with Ryan Tannehill. Okay. Tannehill, look, the Tennessee Titans made this move to Marcus Mariota. And Tannehill, the Titans have won 4 straight games. And Tannehill's been playing very good football. And he's got this offense rejuvenated with a Titans defense that is well coached. They do have some talent on the defensive side of the football as well. But we're really starting to see the offensive talent that is on the outside that I really believed in, but we never had any confidence in, especially, because we are fantasy focused here. The likes of Corey Davis, in particular, this rookie, A.J. Brown. Yep. Out of the University of Ole Miss. I was very high on him coming into this NFL season, and man, has he really developed a nice chemistry with Ryan Tannehill in a very short amount of time. But I'll tell you what, and you can even hand a game ball to this guy, Derrick Henry. Nobody wants to see this guy in the season. Not one damn team wants anything to do with this wrecking ball of a running back because, man, he just brings something to the table that no other running back in the NFL does.
Yeah. I was gonna actually. I'm giving the game ball for me, Tater. It's to the three-headed monster that is the Titans. I mean, listen, you had Henry over 100 yards, I believe, 2 scores on the ground.
Yep.
AJ Brown, you just talked about 5 receptions, 153 yards with 2 touchdowns, and of course, Tannehill almost 400 yards passing. The offense has done a complete 180 under his leadership, and I do say leadership because it looks like Tannehill is become a leader out there. And I think that was a big knock on him in Miami, was that outside of being injured most of the time, that it didn't seem as though he was quite the leader for that squad out there. And you see him being the leader that they need in Tennessee. And it's not just Derrick Henry that the rest of the league doesn't want to see. It's the Titans that the league doesn't want to see right now. You mentioned it. 4 wins in a row, and they just decimated the Raiders, who really showed us just exactly who they were, and they're pretty much frauds to me after flirting with maybe a playoff berth just a couple of weeks ago. But they went on the road going cross country. I mean, that's no easy task. I don't care who you're playing, and they just put it on the Raiders from the start of that game. And like I said, nobody wants to see the Titans right now.
Yeah, I mean, they've certainly come a long way since they got shut out at Denver, have the Tennessee Titans. So, I mean, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, game balls to go around for the triplets, I would say. I'm maybe going a little bit too far, but pump the brakes a little bit.
Right.
They are showing some nice signs over there.
They really are.
3 players in particular, they all showed up. Another guy actually, who are you giving a game ball to?
Yeah. For me, and we talked about this game already, but it's for me, it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, 4 touchdowns through the air. Again, that crucial conversion to Kittle on 4th down to get them within field goal range. I know he threw an interception, but he was just whenever the Saints thought they were going to run away with this game, Jimmy G and Kyle Shanahan and that Niners offense put together a drive to keep them in it and to win it late. And boy, it was a thing of beauty to watch that final drive. I had to watch it sort of on a playback, but it was something to watch because not a lot of guys can do that. Let's call it what it is. And Jimmy G is answering the questions, right? I mean, for me,
he is.
For me, a lot of those questions were sort of already answered, but he's really, really starting to answer those questions for the national attention that he's getting now. Again, the Niners are having a great season. They're atop of the NFC at this point, and he's a big reason why.
I got to raise my hand because I was someone that was giving a lot of throwing a lot of shade at Jimmy G when the 49ers started off 4-5-0, and I thought that the Niners were undefeated in spite of the play that was under center from Jimmy Garoppolo. And he did. I still stand by my assessment, my analysis of him, but I'll tell you what, he's played a hell of a lot better, and he's the reason they're winning football games now. He is no longer a weakness, and now you can actually, the way he's been playing over the last month, you can actually start to raise an eyebrow and go, damn, should the New England Patriots have traded him? Should they have decided to go ahead and make that transition from Tom Brady to Jimmy Garoppolo to kind of press into the future? You can make that argument. I'm not trying to make it right now, but for this week, he certainly deserves a game ball, and he was the reason he made the plays down the stretch on the road against, I think, one of the most talented football teams in the entire National Football League. Nothing but props to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Absolutely. Who else you got? You giving out any more game balls?
Oh, any other game ball?
I've got one more, but what do you got?
Yeah, no. Go ahead. Let it rip.
Yeah, okay. So we also talked about this game too. But for me, it's Drew Lock and kind of the Denver Broncos as a whole, but specifically Drew Lock. I'm gonna hone in on just here for a little bit. Second start of his career. I mean, on the road again. These aren't easy tasks, but 300 yards passing. I mean, three touchdowns through the air. And he's certainly playing like a vet. I mean, he doesn't, at least at this point, look like the game is moving too fast for him. Again, I got to watch a lot of this game on playback as well. You could see the reads, him scanning the field and throwing the ball on time with accuracy. And again, just diced up this Houston Texans defense. Now, you can take that for what you will, right? Is the Houston Texans defense really that good? I mean, some will argue that probably not. But again, to go on the road against a playoff-bound team, 300 yards passing, got to give a big game ball to him. And also Kareem Jackson as well, former Houston Texan.
Oh, yeah.
With the interception and that fumble recovery for a touchdown. Again, it's always sweet, right? When you come back against your former team and you're able to play well. And if the Broncos would have, pulled off some of these games earlier in the season, I mean, their season could be totally flipped as well. They had a couple of close losses earlier, obviously one to the Bears earlier in the season. But if some of those results were different, the Broncos could be thinking about maybe getting a playoff berth. But obviously that won't happen. But definitely got to tip my hat off to Kareem Jackson and Drew Lock of the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, you may think that the Denver Broncos fan base has to feel confident after, Drew Lock is now 2-0 as a starter in the National Football League. And, you come away way more impressed with this win than the one in week 13.
Absolutely.
Just because Drew Lock was, he was I'm going to go use the word sensational. Played really, really, really good football and put it on a very good football team. You can say they're inconsistent, but he went on the road and beat a team that's likely going to be playing in the playoffs. Yeah. So say what you will. I was very impressed with Drew Lock. One other game ball, and I know that you can call me a homer, but Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the Buccaneers fell behind to the Indianapolis Colts, and I'll say this about Winston. He did throw 3 interceptions. He continues to lead the league in that category now with 23. But he kept firing. He just kept coming. And keep in mind, he lost Mike Evans in the first half of this game with a pulled hamstring.
Yep.
Which I think Mike Evans would have had a monster day. So for anybody that had him in fantasy.
You be talking about me.
Yeah. I mean, at least he didn't get you a dud.
No.
But, the one catch for 61 yards and a score, I mean, it was just like a tease because he would have probably put up one of those monster games he's capable of putting up. But you look at what Winston did, and the fact that the touchdown pass that he threw for the go-ahead score to Brashad Perriman in the clutch, back shoulder, right on the money, throw it into a small window. I gotta give him a little bit of credit where credit is due, because in Tampa Bay, there's been, this guy now in his 5th season, and a lot of it's justified. Folks have been kind of putting that microscope on him. And when you're leading the league in interceptions, of course, you're going to have, critics all over the place saying he's turning the ball over too much. And he is. But one thing I got to give him some credit for is it's like the man has permanent amnesia. Like, no matter how bad of an interception he just threw, he goes right back out there and he's willing to throw the ball into a tight, small window with anticipation. He just keeps coming. And in this game in particular, it was because of his performance that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came away with a win against a Colts team that are well coached by Frank Reich. I just got to give some credit to the guy.
No,
456 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air against a pretty good defense. Like, that's not easy to do on 33 of 45 through the air. I mean, yeah, 3 of his 12 incompletions were intercepted, but other than that, he completed passes at a very high clip.
Yeah, listen, I think that's one of the things that people loved about him. And one of the reasons why, Florida State won a national title and he was a Heisman winner was because he's a gunslinger. This is something that we all knew for him coming out of college. He's going to keep, he's a competitor. And but the knock on him has obviously been his attitude and, leadership, obviously, and the turnovers. And again, those are 3 really big flags, right? I mean, when you're talking about a franchise quarterback, but again, like you said, to his credit, he just keeps coming. And boy, I thought, I think we were both really high on the Colts, and not to deviate from talking about Winston, but to me, that's a bad loss by the Colts. You know, I mean, Tampa Bay's not a good team overall, but again, you got to give Jameis Winston a lot of credit for that. I want to turn it around on you just for a couple more minutes about this, Tater. But in this fifth season, obviously this is a crossroad season for Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a franchise. But do you think at all that he's done enough to possibly deserve to stay or you know, a new contract?
I definitely think that he's earned another year. It's hard to say strictly because I can understand the other flip side of the coin. If you want to make an argument that, look, he's cost us games this season because of the aforementioned turnovers. When you're leading the league in interceptions and with a ton of lost fumbles as well, you deserve to have your play critiqued, especially after you're in your fifth NFL season. So, I mean, he does have two of the best weapons out on the outside, which he is taking advantage of because that's why he's putting up very, very gaudy passing numbers as far as touchdowns and yards. But what else is out on the market?
Right.
I mean, at this point, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what are you going to, I mean, you're going to let go of Jameis Winston? And then what? You're not picking, I mean, with how many wins they've accumulated this season, you're not picking in like the top 5.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, so you're probably going to be picking somewhere in like the teens at some point because I mean, I don't think you're even going to have a top 10 pick. So you're not going to get an elite quarterback prospect, and you're not going to, I mean, what are you going to get on the open market? I know Cam Newton may be available, and, you know, Brady and Breeze are technically on their contract years, but I mean, really, are you going to bring in one of those guys? I don't think you are.
Right.
I think you probably franchise Jameis Winston. You do sign a veteran to go ahead, similar to how the Titans did it this year. They brought in Ryan Tannehill to push and compete with Marcus Mariota. I think that that's probably the route that you go, bring in a veteran of some sort to be able to push him. But I do think but I don't think Winston's done enough. Even though he's accumulated a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns, too many turnovers to commit to this guy long term and reset the quarterback market.
Okay. All right.
So that's my take on Jameis Winston. But speaking of takes, we got power rankings coming at you.
Yeah,
so,
buddy.
Go ahead. I mean, let it rip with the power rankings, my friend.
All right. You're probably not gonna like me too much on these power rankings, but I don't know. Let's see. But you know what? I can't say that really for sure. We've sort of been on the same page for the most part. So, but this is an interesting top 5 for me. Just because obviously, you know, a couple of the teams in the power rankings, you know, lost this week. So had to do some shuffling. There are a lot of teams that are starting to get grouped together with these win-loss records. So yeah, you know, I kind of went back and forth on a couple of these. But with that being said, I'm going to start from 5 to 1. Okay, so coming in at number 5, I've got the New Orleans Saints. A battle of 2 NFC teams. Of course, they come out the loser. I thought they should have won this game, sort of going away. And again, this is credit to the Niners for fighting back to get into it. But usually, when New Orleans gets up a couple of scores, they usually end up blowing teams out down there in New Orleans. That did not happen. They're also starting to get banged up at the wrong time of the year. I think Jared Cook, was it just a concussion or was that something else? I can't remember. But he was knocked out earlier in that game. Didn't come back. I think Sheldon Rankins and another guy on their defense, I think just got put on IR, I believe. I'm blanking on the names here, but they've got a couple of injuries to work around in that defense. And listen, that defense hasn't been playing great as of late, especially as it was earlier in the season. So I've got New Orleans coming in at number 5. Number 4, I've got the Seattle Seahawks. Even though they lost, I kind of saw this loss coming. They were on the road against the Rams team that's trending in the right direction. Again, we talked about this earlier in the show. Russell Wilson didn't throw any touchdowns through the air, so that is a bit concerning. But I'm more concerned with the Seattle Seahawks defense more so than their offense. Again, I kind of saw this particular result coming. I wasn't surprised by it, so I'm keeping the Seahawks at number 4. Into the top 3, I've got the Green Bay Packers, although it hates me to say it as a Bears fan here.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, see, I thought I might get that reaction from you.
Damn, all right.
But listen, this is why. only because New Orleans and the Seahawks lost. I would have kept them out, and the Patriots, who are not in my top 5 anymore. So this is the reason why Green Bay sort of vaults in the top 3 for me. If those 3 teams wouldn't have lost, Green Bay, I would still keep them out of the top 5. So due to all of those losses, I think I'm just going to put them up at number 3, at least for this week. Listen, they didn't look great against the team in Washington. We both know that. But again, because New Orleans, Seattle, and the Patriots lost, I'm putting Green Bay at number 3. Coming in at number 2, it's got to be the San Francisco 49ers, right? Winner of the game of the year. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. They're right now the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they're doing it because of Jimmy Garoppolo, like we talked about earlier in the show. And when that defense gets going, man, they're probably the most complete team outside of my number 1 team in the league, which is, no surprise here, the Baltimore Ravens. Right. And MVP looks like lock at this point, Lamar Jackson. Again, he didn't have a great game yardage-wise, but 3 touchdowns through the air and on the road in Buffalo and not the best conditions to come out with a W. I think that is a really, really telling sign for them, as the season goes along, because it shows that they can go on the road and win anywhere, which they've shown already this year. But they can beat anybody, anywhere, anytime. So that's my top 5.
So we have the same top 2 teams, and they're in that order. I do have the Ravens at 1, and I have the 49ers at 2. My other 3, though, because, I mean, you can say, like, Bills, Packers, Vikings, Patriots, right. Seahawks, Chiefs, and Saints. You can mix and match those 3. I mean, right. It just depends on whatever your take is on that given week. But for me, I've still got – look, the Saints, it took the 49ers to drop 48 points, and I get it. They had to score 48 points. So I totally understand that there are some concerns on the defensive side of the football, and you lost at home but you lost at home to a 49ers team that is just playing out of their minds right now. Yeah. I mean, so to me, I'm not holding that loss against them, although there are some things that are a little concerning, but I still saw Drew Brees look like Drew Brees, and I still saw this offense clicking on all cylinders. The only guy that didn't look like himself was Alvin Kamara, which, right. But point being, I think that Kamara is still a nice weapon. Regardless of whether he's going to look like the dynamic guy that he looked like the first 2 years of his NFL career, he's still a very, very valuable cog in that offense for Sean Payton. At 4, I've got the Kansas City Chiefs. And that might seem a little high to you, but
a little bit.
Well, they went on the road and beat Tom Brady and the New England Patriots.
Valuable,
and
no doubt.
For me, Patrick Mahomes is still an elite quarterback. Like, I totally understand that, he's not, I just think that you're not going to see the gaudy numbers that you saw out of him last season, but still find a way to win football games, and he's healthy now. So Kansas City going on the road to Foxborough, where they fell behind early. Keep in mind, they fell behind early, and you saw Mahomes respond. I know that the Patriots made it a game close, and I know that they got some favorable calls, but I still thought that a young football team that maybe they had some demons in their head, they went on the road and got a win against the Patriots team coming off of a loss and humiliated on Sunday Night Football. They went into Foxborough and got a win and got it done. So I think that the Chiefs, I think you see them take off after getting a win like this. And at 5, I've got the Seattle Seahawks. Like you said, they were walking into a buzzsaw, a team that's desperate, and really, if the Los Angeles Rams lose that football game, their season is essentially done. I mean, they would be in the same spot as the Chicago Bears. Right. They'd have a very uphill battle to be able to clinch that final playoff spot. So they walked into a buzzsaw. I'm not concerned about Russell Wilson. Okay. They did lose Rashad Penny. Yeah. Which that's going to be a bigger loss than a lot of people are probably going to give it credit for, because him and Chris Carson were a great one punch.
Yeah, he was playing great.
Yeah, so it's really unfortunate to see Penny go down, but they still got plenty of weapons. I want to see Tyler Lockett get healthy, but you still got Russell Wilson, and you still got Pete Carroll, and you still got some talent on the defensive side of the football too. So I think they'll be able to get it right. Had a really hard time keeping the Packers out of my top 5, though. But I was really disappointed with how they played against a Washington Redskins team led by a rookie quarterback that didn't generate points. I think that a win's a win, but there's something about Aaron Rodgers and this Packers team that I don't trust. So for that reason, that's why I kept him out of my top 5. But let's go ahead and move to, unless there's any thoughts that you have on that.
No. I agree. Again, I think I think you got the Chiefs a little high, but I agree with you on the value of that win, though, Tater. I don't want to discount it at all. Going into Foxborough, I mean, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Nobody goes into Foxborough and wins in December. So they were able to do that, and again, I think it's very valuable for them. And the Chiefs defense, I think that's something that needs to be talked about just a little bit more as well, man. I mean, they've been playing lights out for probably about a month now. And if they can keep that going, they're going to be dangerous as well in this AFC. These playoffs should be really, really fun. I'm excited for what could happen in these AFC playoffs, more so than maybe I have been in the past few years.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what Lamar Jackson can do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, because I'm a huge Lamar Jackson guy, and I was kind of banging on that drum. Like, I didn't know why the draft pundits, like, I'm not, Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. Look, they're two of the best in what they do. Like, I mean, their player evaluations across the board, year in, year out, of these players that come into the NFL draft. I respect totally their analysis and how hard they work, because they're two of the best at what they do. But I will say this: I did not agree whatsoever that Lamar Jackson couldn't throw the football.
Agreed.
Like, I thought that him coming out of that Petrino system, I thought that he looked capable of going through and making NFL type reads at the college level. Like, was every single play, a 7-step drop concept where he's, putting the ball into a tight window? No, it wasn't. But, he showed me enough of being able to go through his progressions that you combo that with his dynamic ability on the ground. I didn't think that you should he should be rated lower than 4 other quarterbacks in that draft class.
Right.
Like, I hated that. I hated that analysis. I hated when people were saying he needs to move to wide receiver. That part I was not about. I only had Baker Mayfield higher than him as far as a quarterback, rating going into. Anyway, I'm not trying to beat my chest or anything like that. I'm just simply saying that, I want to see what Lamar Jackson, though, who has set the league on fire in 2019, what can he do in the postseason?
Right.
Because we saw Patrick Mahomes come up just short against Tom Brady and company. And this is where I understand the Patriots argument. Until I see someone beat them in January, it's hard to count them out, which is kind of the argument for the Patriots for the last 20 years.
Right.
So, but as we move forward to week 15, in particular, are there any games that really catch your eye? I mean, we're getting down to it, man. Teams that need to make a playoff push. I mean, you start coming up with W's, or you're pretty much eliminating yourself.
Well, you know where I'm going to start here in Chicago, man. It's Cheesehead week, man. I mean, it is Packers and Bears round 2. I'm not really going to make a prediction on this game, Tater. But what I will say is that I have a particular feeling about it. Now, for the most part, my particular feelings about this Bears team have been way off this year, but I have a feeling about this game. And I'm not going to really go into details about it. I don't want to jinx anything that may or may not be going on, but we talked about it a little bit. They're going to get Akeem Hicks back on that defensive line, and I think they're going to hang with Green Bay. That's what I will say with this game. They should have beat them in week 1. We both know that. But I've got a sneaky feeling about this game, so I'm really excited for Cheesehead week round 2, Bears and Packers. Bears are desperate. They're desperate. They need this win to keep their playoff hopes alive. So there's a lot that's going on to this game other than maybe the best rivalry in all of football. But for me, a lot of other good things going on too in the league. Let's go take a look at the games really quick. Oh, of course, Texans Titans. I mean, let's also start there. I mean,
yeah, that's a big one.
If the Titans win this game, they're in first place. They're tied right now. So I mean, this is again we talked about them earlier in the show. Nobody wants to see the Titans right now, and they're at home. Boy, I tell you, the Texans they got to figure some stuff out really quickly here. I know there's some other games on the schedule. So what are you looking at in particular?
Bill Steelers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I really, people continue to overlook the fact that if the season were to end today, the Pittsburgh Steelers would actually be in the AFC playoffs. And you really got to tip your hat to Mike Tomlin. I mean, think about it. Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges under center. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner haven't been active the last couple of weeks. And yet this team continues to win football games.
Yep.
And now they're running into a playoff caliber team in the Buffalo Bills. This is the primetime game of the week. And granted, these teams are not known for throwing up points all over the yard in 2019. But there's something to be said about two hard-nosed football teams that are getting it done by just tough, hard-nosed defense and physical defenses in the NFL in 2019. I love it. And we're going to see that on display as the Bills and the Steelers, face off. And the Steelers, keep in mind, they should be getting back James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster this week. So the Bills, who are a team that they do play down to their competition, and sometimes they come out and lay an egg, and Josh Allen turns the ball over. I'm interested to see how this game turns out. I will go ahead and come away with a prediction. I'm going to say the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to find a way to win a football game and stay in the hunt in the AFC. I mean, I think on paper, the Buffalo Bills are the better football team, but I still think that Josh Allen is going through some growing pains, and that Steelers defense has been playing damn good football. For that reason, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers come away with, I'm going to call it like a 20-17 win at home.
Ooh, I like it. And it's two old school styles of football for two old school teams. I mean, you're talking about, this is 1973 AFC
throwback, baby.
Throwback, yeah, absolutely, man. They should be. Hopefully, they might be wearing the throwback uniforms. I doubt it, but that'd be a cool little twist on the game. But both of these teams are storied franchises. We both know the history of the NFL when we talk about the Bills and the Steelers. But it's certainly an interesting game. We were talking about this last week. You were on Tomlin, and I was on John Harbaugh. We were talking about coaches of the year. Boy, I tell you, when I look at what Tomlin has been doing with more of a microscope, I mean, I'm changing my tune. I mean,
you're changing your vote?
I'm definitely changing my vote. I think what was known was that Tomlin was a master motivator, right? I think we both knew that coming in, but this has been a complete coaching job, one of the best that I have probably seen in recent memory. There is no way that the Pittsburgh Steelers are even supposed to be in playoff contention right now. No way. And yet they are. And I kind of agree with you, Tater. They might pull off a close win on Sunday night.
We're going to have to keep an eye on it. But, I mean, the fact, even against Tomlin's proven that I'm willing to make big boy decisions when it matters. And we saw them struggle against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know that's why some folks are not a believer in the Steelers. And I can understand why. Because we really haven't seen them play consistent on the offensive side of the football. And, I mean, you're going to believe in Devlin Duck Hodges. I mean, it's hard to
right.
It's hard for me to have any confidence, but when it comes to what they're doing on the football field, they're not beating themselves. And that is a reflection of the coach. When your team goes out and gives themselves the best chance to win a football game on any given week. And that's exactly what the Steelers have done in 2019. Despite, I think it was an 0-3 start, man. I mean, this team got off to a horrible start.
Yep.
And they look like a completely different football team. I've got one other game to keep an eye on. It's the Los Angeles Rams and the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry World, where things just continue to unravel there in Big D. And Jerry Jones, Jason Garrett, seems like on paper, this team for the Dallas Cowboys should be way better than they've performed, especially over the last month of the season. And the Rams, I mean, again, it's the Cowboys against a team with a winning record, and the Rams coming off of a big emotional win on primetime football against the Seattle Seahawks. Like, the Cowboys need a win. I mean, they've eaten up their cushion, and the Eagles. You say what you want about the Eagles. It took like a rally late against the New York Giants at home to be able to pull that one off. But a win is a win, and now they're tied at 6-7 in the division. So if the Cowboys lose and the Eagles, who have the Redskins this week, come away with the win, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a must win for the Cowboys because they still do have in week 16 the Philadelphia Eagles for basically the rights to the division. But don't you feel like the Cowboys, man, they're in a tailspin and they got to get it right or otherwise their season's cooked?
Yeah, I mean, they've lost 7 out of their last 10. You can start the conversation there and you can end the conversation there in a lot of ways. But 7 out of their last 10 for, like you said, on paper, one of the more talented teams in the league. They're a mess. They're void of leadership. They should have gotten rid of Jason Garrett ages ago. They haven't. There's little effort on defense. I mean, again, we're talking about this Bears game on Thursday night.
Oh, yeah.
There were 15, 20 missed tackles. I mean, easily. These are just what I'm popping into my head that I can think of right now. They're not disciplined. And again, they're a mess of a team. Having said that, I think this could be a classic trap game for the Rams, coming off in a sort of emotional win at home against the Seahawks. They're certainly capable of going down in Jerry World and laying an egg. But the Cowboys need a win. And this was actually one of my top takeaways from the week. We didn't get into it a whole lot, but the NFC East is just one of the worst divisions in the history of the National Football League.
Trash.
And it's horrible. It's hot garbage. But somebody's got to win it. And if the Cowboys do that, then they're right back at atop of it. So we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised in either result when we're talking about this game.
And also for you Bears fans, you're probably cheering for the Los Angeles Chargers to come away with a victory over the Minnesota Vikings. Chargers coming off of a nice win against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday.
Yeah, rooting for the Chargers and the Cowboys.
But that'll do it for this episode of the Go Route here, brought to you by Fantasy Focused. Brought to you by the original Hooters here on the Fantasy Focused channel. If this is your first time coming across our show, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also, drop us a review if you're on our YouTube channel. Hit the like button. We really do appreciate any and all the support. Go ahead and enjoy Week 15 of NFL action. And if I remember correctly, Jason Pfeiffer's got himself a sign-off line. Go ahead and hit us with it.
I'm going to hit you with it. I'm Jay Fife, and I'm telling you all to live your best life. See you next week.
Till next time, everybody. Later, says the Tater. Thanks for joining.